We received some stares from our fellow students as we entered the classroom. Which one had surprised them? The fact that Adachi had come to class, or that I was with her? Probably a mix of the two. We were both treated as delinquents, after all. Yawning, Adachi looked around the classroom. Had she perhaps forgotten where her seat was? Adachi sat in the front row on the corridor side, whereas I sat in the third row next to the windows. They were on the exact opposite sides of the classroom, and so we parted ways immediately after entering as we went to take our seats. Having sat down, I started preparing for the upcoming class. Wait, did Adachi even have the textbook with her? Thinking this, I glanced at her, only to see that she had already taken it out. From the looks of it, she kept them all stored in her desk. Adachi had placed the book, and nothing else, on the table. Next to it rested her elbow, propping up her chin. Keeping that pose, she turned her gaze towards the windows, most likely to look at me. Her glance came too suddenly for me to dodge, and our eyes met. I was a little startled, and by the look of it, so was Adachi. We sat there, staring at each other. It was difficult to look away. Using our eyes, we asked each other, "What do you want?" At least 10 times. That's what it felt like, anyway. Being the one who had looked first, it made sense that I should answer that question. Still, how exactly was I meant to convey my answer to her? It wasn't like I could just start yelling across the classroom. I decided to try pointing at my own textbook. Would this be enough for her to understand the meaning of my stare? Adachi turned her eyes down towards the book sitting on her desk and stared at it for a while. Still looking at her, a thought crossed my mind. Her profile really was like a painting. Having lifted her head back up, Adachi mouthed me a reply. I couldn't understand it at first, but after she repeated the message for a second time, I finally realized what she was saying. Did you forget your book? Hey, don't lump me with you. I might not have been the best student, but I was simply crossing the line. Of course, since in the eyes of Adachi, and everyone else for that matter, I was simply a delinquent. The source for such unnecessary worries lay completely within myself. Meanwhile, the teacher arrived. Though she did look curiously at the two of us, clearly surprised by our presence, she didn't say anything about it, and simply walked over to her desk in silence. The class then began. How long had it been since we last sat in a classroom together? Adachi had definitely been around more during the first semester, but back then I hadn't been paying any attention to her. Still, looking back to it with the knowledge I now possessed, there had definitely been something strange about her. Knowing that we'd end up in another awkward situation if our eyes were to meet, I did my best not to look into Adachi's direction. This actually led me to behave like a good student. I had no choice but to follow what the teacher was writing on the blackboard. My eyes and hands moved automatically, and my idle mind continued piling up endless questions in an attempt to fight back against boredom. Which one of us was making it so the gap between us couldn't be closed? Me or Adachi? With my head filled with thoughts like those, I copied what it said on the blackboard in my notebook like a robot. So, what did you think about your first class in like forever? I'm fine with Japanese history, but maths? I don't got a clue anymore. Ha! Oh, Adachi. I must have taken far more classes than Adachi. So then, why was I in the same boat as her when it came to maths? Well, simple. I was more suited for the liberal arts. Japanese, fluent. After school ended, I left with Adachi as I had promised to do. Once again, there wasn't much in her bag. Shimamura, did you notice that everyone was staring at you? Adachi said, looking over her shoulder at the classroom we had just exited. I hadn't really noticed, but it definitely sounded plausible. You don't think it was you who they were staring at? No, definitely you, she asserted. And how did you know that? Must be because you're so pretty. Huh? Where had that come from? I was so taken aback by the Dutch's sudden assessment that I forgot to turn at the corner leading to the stairs and nearly bonked my head into the wall. In panic, I took a step back to avoid a collision, this time coming close to falling on my butt. What's wrong with you? Adachi asked, tilting her head with her foot firmly planted on the first step of the stairs. Come on, you know that it was your fault. Sorry, it's just no one has ever called me pretty before. Beautiful, on the other hand, I'd heard from my relatives as a compliment. Really? You don't have a boyfriend or anything? Nope, never had one. Hmm, judging by her reaction, something about my response bothered Adachi. Her face was blank, but pointed slightly upwards. All the guys must be blind then. Really? I would have thought it was the opposite. Still, I felt flattered and decided not to say that out loud. By the way, where are we going? I'm kinda hungry since we didn't have any lunch. Alright, so somewhere to eat then. Adachi rubbed her belly through her uniform. Then, after taking a quick look around, she replied, I'm in mood for something simple, like donuts. Donuts, huh? Well, the station's close by. Let's go there. I pointed forward, and we exited the school building. It was a pretty long walk to the station, but I wasn't opposed to it. We walked silently side by side. It was when I reached the school gate, and Adachi was still with me, that I noticed that something was off. Huh? Where's your bike? I didn't come to school with it today. It's being repaired. Though Adachi tried to play it cool, I knew that she lived quite far away from school. Really? Even though she had to walk, the delinquent came to school? Well done. I praised her jokingly. Yes, I did. Adachi stared at me, looking completely serious. She pulled her shoulders together, as if her entire body had stiffened up, and opened her mouth. I thought you might come, she muttered, or rather spoke firmly. Okay, I answered back, awkwardly. What she had said wasn't all that different from straight up confessing that she had come to school just to see me, and she had said it straight to my face. Having perhaps realized this herself due to my reaction, a faint blush appeared on Adachi's face. Or maybe it only seemed like that to me. Either way, something about this atmosphere felt rough against my skin. What was that something? Maintaining that feeling of stiffness, different from awkwardness, we drifted towards the station. We entered a cheap-looking, two-storied building swarmed by countless people, some of them wearing school uniforms, and then the Mr. Donut located directly to the left of its entrance. As it turned out, however, the store was crowded with students having returned from school by train, as well as other customers, of course, leaving us nowhere to sit. Furthermore, the line to the register was absurdly long. "This place is pretty popular, huh?" I asked Adachi, and gave her a glance over my shoulder. As I did, I at last saw her laugh. "Still, I like the smell of sugar," she said, sniffing the sweet aroma that filled the store. So sweet, in fact, that just smelling it made me feel full. Like insects gathering around flowers. I don't really like that example. Adachi frowned at my comparison. It seemed that she wasn't a fan of bugs. Knew it. A part of me felt relief that we had finally spoken to each other, after all that time spent in silence. "What do you want to eat, Shimamura?" The usual atmosphere was back, and so was the liveliness of Adachi's voice and movements. Walking here together had been like two stone statues trying their hardest to move, and so our acting like that was, in a way, fresh. I'm always bad at choosing, but I think I'll go with Angel French. Oh, and I'll buy two more to give to my little sister when I get home. Though I never knew what to pick, a lot of the time I ended up going with this one. As it turned out, it was also the kind of donut Mom used to buy me when I was little, so perhaps there was some sort of psychological imprinting at play here. "You too, Shimamura?" Adachi said, pondering. From the looks of it, she had been planning to buy an Angel French as well. "Hmm? What's troubling you?" "That we're gonna pick the same thing." "And? Is there a problem with that?" "I think I'll go with this after all." Adachi chose the honey dip from the row below. Did she perhaps dislike matching with others? Standing in line, Adachi spoke to me, holding the tray that carried our donuts. "Are you going to class tomorrow too?" "I was planning to. Don't want to be known as someone who gives up immediately." "I see." It wasn't like I didn't miss the second floor of the gym. Besides, we definitely hang around there again. Smiling at Adachi's blunt response, I looked at her and spoke. "Would you, Adachi, not join me?" I purposefully made my tone sound theatrical. Adachi was taken aback slightly, but after a few seconds, she replied with a smile. "Well, okay, just a little bit more." Surprisingly enough, she didn't have any objections towards going to class. It wasn't like either of us had any particular reason to skip class. As such, once we were actually there, sitting silent in the classroom came to us naturally. After waiting for what felt like an eternity, we finally paid for our purchases and exited the store. Then, leaning against the side of a nearby escalator, we began eating. Adachi opened the bag and handed me my Angel French, using a paper napkin to pick it up. I thanked her, accepted it, and sank my teeth into the chocolate part. Sweet. Having not eaten anything since breakfast, the sensation I felt as the sweet chocolate touched my tongue was quite intense. My lips contracted, but in a unique way, not quite like when eating something sour. Still, the taste was delicious. Heavenly sweetness wrapped my tongue and teeth. Adachi, on the other hand, tore off a small piece of her donut and placed it in her mouth. She was eating it like bread. However, while doing it that way might look more elegant, it also covered your fingers in sticky sugar, which was why I preferred biting it directly. Still, doing that caused the area around your mouth to get dirty. So in the end, I suppose there wasn't really a difference between the two. By the way, Hino was asking about you yesterday. While eating, I suddenly remembered that I had forgotten to tell her that. Adachi's hand stopped, and she looked away from me. Is Hino the small one? Yep, you got it. She said she wanted to get on good terms with you. Oh, okay. Yeah, I had a feeling that you wouldn't be interested. Adachi still wouldn't look at me, and simply mumbled something in response. It was like talking to a wall. If Hina really wanted to get along with her, she was in for a challenge. I had to wonder though, how was I on such good terms with her? As one's own personality was something beyond one's grasp. I had no idea what about me had caught her interest. Anyway, Shimamura, you have a little sister. You mentioned her a little while ago. Adachi quickly moved the topic away from Hino. Not that I really cared. Yep, I do. How old? Fourth grade. My folks treat her like she's still in kindergarten, though. Speaking about mom, her behavior seemed to change completely, depending upon if she was at home or outside of it. I'd heard that she used to be a straight A student back in school, and yet, despite having long since become an adult, she still threw special martial art moves against her older sister whenever she came over to visit. The way she altered her behavior kinda resembled Adachi, didn't it? A little Shimamura, huh? I bet she's cute. When she's not being a cheeky brat or kicking me, I answered in a slightly ambiguous way. Must be nice, Adachi replied, smiling. Was she perhaps yearning for a sibling? I guess that would make her an only child. I wasn't sure if it was related to that or not, but either way, Adachi held out a torn off piece of her donut. Wanna try it? Sure. I extended my head towards the piece of dough she held in her fingers and took a bite. The sweet taste coated with honey quickly filled my mouth. So sweet, in fact, that I felt like my teeth were going to start aching. Honey really did have its own, uniquely thick sweetness that cream just couldn't match. You can taste mine too. I held out my donut in turn, ignoring the fact that it was half eaten. Adachi stared at it intensely, but refused to move her head. Wondering why she was hesitating, I glanced at the donut. I then realized what was wrong. Oh, I see. I pulled the donut back and took a small bite of it. With the cream filling now exposed, I once more presented it to her. Like this? Okay, like that. Adachi took a bite of my angel French, leaving me to wonder what she had meant by that strange expression. She chewed thoroughly and then swallowed. In spite of how loosely she was wearing her uniform, her modest and deliberate movements gave the impression of politeness. Watching her eat, I imagined that her parents must have been quite strict with her.